So we have to bring you our main conversation for this morning. And we also know that there's a press conference that will be convened by the University Teachers Association of Ghana at 2 p.m. this afternoon. Or 2 p.m. this afternoon, of course. But it's also because of the impasse at the University of Education, Winneba. And apparently, there seem to be some concerns that have been raised. Somebody who has been here before, a deputy ranking on the Education Committee of Parliament, is Dr. Clement Apaak. He's here. Good morning to you. He's also Roland, the Member of Parliament for Busa South.
Yes, Solyu.
Solyu Nalo.
Kubasa. Yes, Kubasa.
Kubasa.
Very well. You've done well.
Thank you. But we'll talk about all those relevant issues on the University of Education, Winneba. But yesterday, the Minister of Energy took a detour of some areas just close to the GridCo office in Tema. And apparently, it was detected some pylons that usually would transmit electricity consistently to consumers were being sabotaged. Not only being sabotaged by political saboteurs. It's a concern that has been raised by the Energy Minister, as well as other social commentators. Let's get some insight into what the whole story is about. We'll get some insights also from the Minister, and then we'll come back to the studio to get some discussions ongoing.
The collapsed pylon could be seen leaning on a nearby pylon, also transmitting electricity. Energy Minister Peter Moe strongly condemned the action and those behind it.
Why would merit somebody to do this? We are Ghanaian, a country that believes in common purpose, common destiny for Mother Ghana. We're all doing this just because we want to live a Ghana that is better for everybody to enjoy. So I don't expect us to be witnessing things of this nature. But I can assure you, we've put in intelligence. There's a committee in place to start immediate investigation. And those perpetrators will be brought back. And we will make sure that we'll deal with them by the law. I will not associate myself with this. And I don't expect any political party living in this country to associate itself with this type of happening. It's not good for us.
Some have said that this is self-inflicted.
This is a complete sabotage. You can see it. It's a sabotage.
It's not self-inflicted to give government an opportunity for excuses as far as the...
What government excuses? Excuses for what? For the chemicals they are putting along these towers? How can a civilized person do this to his or her country?
A close observation of the pylons revealed some substance which has been smeared on the stands of the pylon. That same substance had been smeared on at least 2 nearby pylons.
We have already detected that all the towers along this line, there are chemicals already being placed around them. The intention is to destroy them in future. We can't be subjecting our own country to this reason.
A source at the Security Department of GridCo tells JoyNews a black polythene bag full of the whitish chemical was seen at the base of one of the transmission towers and has been handed over to the CID. Mr. Moe says security will be deployed to the site and all GridCo installations to ward off saboteurs.
Yes, the police have started investigation. National security is in charge. And we put in all necessary measures to make sure that we bring the perpetrators to book. Well, the site highly it's supposed to be protected by our national, security. We expect some level of protections of national strategic assets of this nature. But some of these things cannot be everywhere and every time. And some of these thieves, some of these animals in our society will do things, just to outweigh the security. And this is what we're happening.
The GridCo Chief Executive Engineer Amwakuban told the minister the immediate steps being taken to save the situation.
So they are going to use hard iron brushes to try to take this out. So that's what they will be doing later. But currently, because of this, they are now patrolling all the towers to be sure of the numbers.
We need to determine the numbers. Yeah.
We have some elsewhere between Accra, Winneba, so we don't know what people are doing in the bush. But as I said, normally we go around every month and then they bring their report. So they will continue to be doing that and then they would be bringing their report.
So I think you need to intensify the daily routine monitoring. It is very important we do that.
Well, it's quite interesting, especially when the sabotages seem to be politically linked. And it's a concern being raised by the Energy Minister. What's your thoughts, Dr. Apaak?
Well, first of all, Roland, let me say good morning to you and to viewers, and to greet the people of Busa South. The Easter break is coming up, and fairly soon I'll be joining them. It's also likely that I may take a quick trip home to my holy village of Dorninga on a family matter, even before that. But let's dig in on the issue that you have presented. I agree with the minister when he calls attention to an act that is inimical to the well-being of the country. And indeed, I also agree with him that any well-meaning Ghanaian who truly values yourself as a citizen wouldn't engage in such practice. It is condemnable. It is criminal. And indeed, those responsible, if apprehended, must be made to feel the full force of the law. But I disagree with him intensely because he has tried now to politicize what is clearly an act of criminality and an act of sabotage.
Well, if there's suspicion to do so, why not?
Well, if he has suspicion to do so, he is not just an ordinary Ghanaian. He's a minister of state. He sits in cabinet. He has access to the security apparatus of this country. The right thing to do would be to provide whatever evidence he has to justify his claim that this is a sabotage that has political undertones, to the needed authorities to act appropriately. Look, let's face it, these kinds of pronouncements are not useful to us as a nation in the effort to weed out miscreants and persons who engage in acts that are inimical or detrimental to the interests of the state and to the interests of Ghanaians. When we do this, we give a cover to people to get away because we are focused on the political opponents and allow the criminal element to get away free of charge.
When the politicians or the political saboteurs could be having an intention to make government feel bad, or the government have a bad rating in public opinion.
Anything that goes wrong in this country is as a result of political sabotage.
Why not?
Are we then saying that the two buses that collided, which resulted in the demise of several hundreds of people from our own region, was as a result of political sabotage?
Nobody said that.
So why should this be as a result of political sabotage? Is it not the case that some people, on their own volition, can decide to act in ways that are inimical to the public interest? Don't we see that every day? You see, when people in higher authority speak this way, then we are bound to respond. So now the conversation has tilted from speaking about this evil that has been committed against the state to a political dialogue. Because naturally, when you make a statement like this, and it is being presented the way you have, then we then have to challenge the minister to prove to us and the rest of Ghana that he has a basis to conclude that this unacceptable act that occurred was politically motivated. But it is not right. You don't build a country that way. And I truly think that he better comes clean and clear by providing evidence to substantiate his claim, or he needs to apologize. This kind of conduct is simply not acceptable in a modern democracy. Are we going to blame everything that goes wrong in society on political sabotage?
For God's sake, he's a minister of state.
Yeah, so he should know better.
He has every apparatus at his disposal.
So then he should tell us.
He has some of the greatest intel.
But as a journalist, wouldn't you be interested in knowing what the minister means by what he said? Wouldn't you be interested in knowing what the minister means by what he said? Are you not curious? Shouldn't he be more forthcoming? Shouldn't he activate the needed processes to bring the perpetrators to book, whether it is political sabotage or not? But he has tainted what is a legitimate issue that should worry every single Ghanaian. But clearly, I agree with him, except that his lack of restraint in blaming this on political sabotage is what I disagree with.
Well, let's face it. We've had some difficulties in transmission of power to the ordinary consumer.
Yes.
And of course, there have been some legitimate reasons or rationale for us having the inconsistencies in supply. And what a better way to blame the government of the day for so-called its inefficiency in supervising over those supplies than to say that
it doesn't make sense.
To say that than to undertake something like this.
But
it could be the works of political saboteurs.
Roland, it doesn't make sense.
He can't be far from right.
It doesn't make sense. He has not provided any iota of evidence. He's just merely made a statement. He has alleged. He must prove it.
Well, there's an evidence
that
consistently of some corrosive materials being applied to the metals or the base of the metals.
And nobody is denying that what he says has occurred because the visuals are there for everyone to see. But how then do you link that? How then do you interpret that to be an act of political sabotage? Are you suggesting that when Ghana suffers from erratic and irregular power supplies, it is only members of the ruling government who suffer? Are they the only persons who have businesses? We all benefit when there is regular, affordable power supply. We have a collective interest to ensure that we don't revert to times where we were struggling to keep industry running, even to keep our domestic environment functioning because of erratic and irregular power supply, which our ex-while NDC government worked assiduously to try and fix. So what would be the benefit? To try and destroy a product whose availability, whose cheap cost is going to benefit all of us as a society. You truly think anyone would do that? To what end? What is the purpose of power? You gain power because you want to use that power to improve the conditions of the people.
Yes, and government is trying to do that.
And the opposition is doing the same. So why would we try to blame this on somebody?
To the opinion of the energy minister.
Well, the energy minister got it wrong. And I think it is most unfortunate.
The government is doing so well.
This hawkish attitude.
The opposition political parties may not like it
This hawkish attitude, doing well. Yes, if they do well, it is good for all of us. Why, if the city bounces back, we all...
You don't like the energy supply, the
reasons.
consistency in power supply?
Is there anyone who is in Ghana who would prefer to be in darkness? Tell me. Don't people on both sides of the political aisle have businesses? Don't they have families? Don't they have fridges in their rooms and TV sets to even watch you and I? You truly think they would prefer to be in darkness? If that is the case, why are we constantly advocating that the rest of the country that is still not connected to the national grid, that electricity should be extended to? What is the purpose of all of that? So I truly disagree with the minister. I think he got it wrong, and he needs to apologize.
Now let's come to the mainstream issue, and the reason why we brought you
here. Yes.
It's about the impasse at the University of Education, Winneba. And just about a week or two ago, consistently, we had the University Council and management deciding to close down the university in collaboration with the Regional Security Council. And subsequently, we had the students being told to leave campus. Of course, things have since normalized, but there seem to have been some concerns being raised by members of UTAC on the campus, but also the general national body of the University Association, Teachers Association of Ghana, and well, they are convening a press conference 2 p.m. today. But it also lends credence to the fact that all is not well on the campus of the University of Education, Winneba. Dr. Clement Apaak is a member of Parliamentary Select Committee on Education, and it's one of the main reasons why we brought him here. Of course, we're interspersed with some great interactions and visuals as you tend to watch. But you have been following the issues. Of course, you've been a member of the university community, so you have close allies, etc. What have you been picking up since?
Well, first of all, I disagree with you when you say things have normalized.
They have not.
They have not, because in an institution of higher learning, you can only speak about normalcy when teaching and learning is in session, where students are attending lectures, lecturers are preparing their lecture notes, heads of departments are at post, students are writing their dissertations and handing them over to their supervisors. It is only there and then that we can talk about normalization. So in as far as the students are still off campus, and as far as the lecturers are still up in arms, challenging the decisions made by council, I think we are far from using the word normalcy. What we can say is that as of now, from what I know, the feuding parties have taken very entrenched positions, and that does not bode well for an amicable resolution of the impasse, and that is very worrying. I say so because the last time we spoke, when I was here, it was a case that after some interventions, which later on were even disputed with regards to the Member of Parliament for Ifutu, Fenyo Markins, and Kennedy Japan being on the campus and then assuring members of UTAG and some of the dismissed lecturers that the processes had been initiated. I remember one of the newspapers had even published it, and I told you that it was window dressing. You remember there was a picture of the main players in the company of the minister, and I said that this was just window dressing, that the smiles were just a charade, and that the issue had not been resolved. And I've been proven right. Since then, as per the directive that UTAG thought was given to them from a high authority, they wrote to council, the petition council, and the request was that all of their dismissed colleagues and the rest of the other members of the university community, making up the 22 who were dismissed at the time, should be reinstated. Council wrote back indicating that that was not acceptable and that the condition on which they would be considered, in this case those who had been dismissed, was for those dismissed persons to write to council justifying why they should be reinstated. And of course, UTAG refused to, take up that directive from council. So as we sit now, there is a stalemate. Council is very adamant in making any move, contrary to what we were told by the political class, yet an example of political interference, because the rendition that we got was that, the impasse had been dealt with and that it was just a mere formality, and that should UTAG write to council, they will be reinstated. As we speak now, that has not happened. So I think it is on the basis of this that UTAG has also decided to come public, because in the opinion of UTAG, they have given council and the powers that be a reasonable time to try and address the issue. In their opinion, the system as it is has not worked in terms of council playing its role and in terms of the appointing authorities, and even the state represented by government also playing its role to try and resolve the impasse. So I believe later this afternoon we will get to hear in much more detail what UTAG has in mind. But I can say with all conviction that, having been a product of the academic environment and myself, a UTAG member at large, that UTAG is not going to come begging, or is not going to come softly. UTAG is very likely to also come fully prepared to do battle on this matter, because UTAG truly believes that what has transpired is against laid down rules and regulations, and it's against university statutes. And truly, once UTAG has the backing of students, which seems to be the case, as I said before, on the scale, when you weigh students and lecturers versus university council, I truly believe that we should be looking at what we need to do that should inure to the interest of the students and the lecturers. A university can function without a vice chancellor and top management, but a university cannot function without students and lecturers. I repeat that. And if the powers that be are listening, I think it is time that they begin to move in to correct an impasse that they themselves cannot exonerate themselves from, because the political interference is well known.
Now, despite the divergent views, it is true that the University Council is close with the authority to take the position that it did alongside management. And subsequently, if you look at the content or you analyze the content of the press conference that was given, the University Council should be right in law.
No. And that is the reason why UTAG is also very solid in this position. Because you must remember that we are dealing with an academic environment. I mean, these are people who can all read and write and understand content and context. All of these lecturers and professors who have been dismissed, they know. Some of them were even members of council, so they know what they are talking about. Remember that council is a composition of different stakeholders or interest groups. You have a student representative, you have a representative from the University Teachers Association itself, you have a representative from the University Workers Association, TEU. You would have government appointees, and I believe from my check that on the UEW Council, there are 4 government appointees. And in fact, the council chair is also appointed. So the argument is also being made that the current council is there to do the bidding of a particular interest. And that is why council's decisions, as narrated by UTAG, has been at variance with the university statutes. And I can challenge you to look for a copy. And if you read, I mean, some of the decisions, some of the justifications for the actions taken by council, truly, you don't even need to be a lawyer or have a legal background to understand. How do you, for God's sake, dismiss a lecturer because you claim he took the university to court? I mean, truly, since when? Which are the laws of this land that make it criminal for a lecturer to take a university to court? I mean, on that basis, you dismiss him? How do you dismiss a lecturer because you claim he walked out on the council chair during a meeting? Really? In that case, I think many members of parliament will be dismissed. So if you are going to use the washroom, you can't walk out and go use the washroom and come back. A man leaves for only 10 minutes and comes back on the basis of that. It's justification to this. Look, let's go back to the core of the issue. We are just beating about the bush.
Which is what?
We all know how the current council came into being. We all know how the current council was composed. We all know how the current vice chancellor came into being. We know how the current council chair went from a retired associate professor, appointed as council chair, and suddenly he has been promoted to full professor. It is clear that the new management under the current council and the vice chancellor have decided that any and everyone in that academic environment who is perceived not to be in support of their regime or was sympathetic to the regime of Professor Apaak must go. And this is what is happening.
That's a conspiracy.
I am not saying it. It is obvious.
It's not been backed.
Anyone who...
You are speculating.
Well, I know what I am saying because the evidence is there to show it. I mean, when the president went to attend the investiture of the current vice chancellor... And
the president was right to attend to attend that investiture.
Against all wise counsel, because the case was still in court. Indeed, at the time, the Yoko report, on the basis of which all of this was initiated, because a citizen of Winneba went to court accusing the former management of not following procurement processes in awarding contracts, had not even come public. If you see the copy of that report today, it actually exonerates the former management. And all of this against wise counsel, the president still chose to attend. But the president, at that ceremony, called for reconciliation. And one would have thought that at the very minimum, the current management would have paid attention or respected the call that the president made. Because if they had accepted the challenge that the president gave them to unite and reconcile the campus, the consequential actions that they took in terms of these questionable dismissals would not have occurred. And if that had not occurred, the many students who were being tutored and lectured by these dismissed lecturers would not have seen the need to publicly protest, and therefore the university would not have been closed down. This is the case, and this is the issue. And so I want to appeal to the powers that be to be forthcoming in helping to resolve a matter and a challenge that they themselves have helped to perpetrate. It has, I mean, look, let's speak the truth to power. This issue is a product of political interference.
And subsequently, we've had the university teachers chapter, that's the association's chapter on the campus, on one end, alongside the students, and the council and the management at the other end. It doesn't bring any resolution to the impasse.
Exactly my point. Because
but that raises deep-seated concerns
for which
people like you, you're a legislator.
Yes, and we
lecturer, you've been an integral part of UTAG on the campus of the
Yes, Roland, you are right. You are right.
And some of you, your utterances should help resolve the impasse.
We are not sleeping over the issue. We are not. The last time I was here, I indicated to you that the Committee of Parliament on Education was going to set up a process of hearing the feuding parties as part of the options of trying to, resolve the difference. Now, we have engaged the University Teachers Association. As a matter of fact, 2 of those who were dismissed appeared before the committee. I know that this week we'll be engaging some of the other groups. But I believe that that is going to be a rather long and perhaps tortuous process. Because by the time we listen to the students, we've listened to the lecturers, we have to listen to council, we have to listen to the students, we have to listen to... Time is going. Students have exams to write. They have courses to finish. They have dissertations to defend. They have dissertations to write. Lecturers have to grade them. Time is of the essence. And I truly think that if there's the political will to do what is right, it would be done. We will do our part as legislators, but we know that there are superior powers available to intervene to make sure that this issue is resolved amicably. We saw a situation in KNUST. Was it not resolved? It was.
And the 2 members who appeared before your committee, who, of course, were some of the aggrieved.
Very well, yes.
What were some of their concerns?
Well, I can't divulge that because, it's a parliamentary committee. So this is privileged information, and I don't want to prejudice. I can share my opinions as I'm doing based on information that is in the public domain, but I don't think that it will be ethical for me to divulge the details of what they came to tell us at the committee level. But to say the least, very worrisome commentaries that we had. But it is difficult to conclude or pass judgment until we hear all the other interested parties as far as this debacle is concerned.
Prior to that press conference by council, we had some deep interaction with the aggrieved parties, especially the representative of UTAG, Dr. Doku, and a number of the student leaders or the student body in themselves. And if you reconcile what their position was and what that press conference and its contents were, does it speak to the issues that had been raised earlier, either by Mr. Apaak and subsequently the concerns of those entities, the UTAG chapter, those who were representing those who had been dismissed and the students?
Well, I think that we would get a lot more clarity after we hear what UTAG has to say. Because remember that UTAG is doing this in reaction to the developments that have come from council on the back of the assurances that were given by the minister as conveyed by my 2 colleagues in Parliament. I mean, people are even raising questions about their locus, for instance, who gave them that authority to go and even try to do what they did. And whether it's indeed the case that the message they conveyed to UTAG was indeed coming from the minister. As I speak now, we are yet to hear the reaction from official sources. So I would say it perhaps would help the discourse and give us more clarity when we hear UTAG's position this afternoon. For all you know, it is also entirely possible that maybe in the back, some arrangements may have been brokered or some compromises may have been made. And for that matter, UTAG may be coming to tell us something that will be much more pleasing to the ear, so to speak. So I don't think we should put the cart in front of the horse. Let's let UTAG speak, and then we can then weigh the two sides, because it is now clearly UTAG representing its members and going against council that UTAG believes is trampling upon the rights of members of UTAG. And I think UTAG has every right to defend its members, because that is the reason why you form labor organizations or associations to defend you against the powerful, against those who have the capacity to take you for granted or to abuse your rights. So UTAG is acting properly within the context of his mandate, and I think that the entrenched position of council on this matter is not helpful. And I think it is even more worrisome that council seems to have defied what many of us believed the last time I was here was a brokered agreement led by the sector minister. Except, of course, perhaps, you know, we were not being told the real truth about what communication went on between council and the minister as conveyed to UTAG members by the two members of parliament.
Well, we'll be here. We'll bring you details of that press conference by the University Teachers Association of Ghana. And it's all on the impasse on the campus of the University of Education, Winneba. And as we do that, please know that the fallout also will be brought to you live. Through it all, you can get interactive on Facebook, JoyNews on TV. We have a Twitter handle. You can also be watching us live on My Joy Online TV on YouTube and myjoyonline.com. But just over the weekend, we had those sad incidents, especially the dawn of Friday, we're told. We had those accidents and we lost, what's the numbers we've lost now?
The estimates in the Kintampo accident alone is about 70 plus.
And then we had one also.
If you add that, we are looking at 90 plus.
Very interesting.
Very unfortunate.
Well, we'll bring you a story.
I wouldn't say interesting, I would say
from Parliament as well. Because interestingly, you were in Parliament yesterday.
Yes, but at the Public Accounts Committee.
Great. And apparently your colleagues at the plenary or in the chamber decided to show some signs of respect to those who had lost their lives in the disasters following the cyclones hitting Mozambique, Malawi, and Zimbabwe, and the rest of Southern Africa, and even New Zealanders and their immigrant population that had been affected in those twin bombings, but not the victims in Ghana. Very ironic.
Well, it came to me as a surprise as well, and I think it was an oversight. A strange one, of course, I must admit.
That's what you were told?
It was that is what I believe. I wasn't in the chamber, as I told you, because you know the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, of which I am a member, is sitting. So yesterday we began the process of examining the Auditor General's report for the year ending December 31st, 2016, on the public boards and corporations. So what was decided was that we would go into the chamber, and then after the prayers, we would then go to our meeting room and, you know, begin the processes of verifying the content of the Auditor General's report. So that is what we did yesterday. It was later on in the day, around midday, that a journalist accosted me to find out why two statements were read, and the speaker went on to ask members to rise and observe a minute silence each in respect of the lives lost on the east coast of Africa as a result of the cyclone, and as well, as you indicated earlier, the lives lost in New Zealand as a result of the terrorist attack on the mosque. And yet, similar was not done in recognition of the tragic event that occurred on the day that we now refer to as Bloody Friday. So I was quite concerned and a bit worried about how that could be the case. As I sit now, I truly cannot explain why that was the case. What I can say is that it is regrettable. That should not have happened. And I think that there is still the opportunity for us to correct that wrong. But it is also the practice in Parliament that when these kinds of tragic events occur, the priority is given to the Member of Parliament from the who represents the affected persons to be the one to lead in terms of making a statement on the floor of Parliament, after which members then contribute. And usually on the back of that, the Speaker will then make a demand of all of us, as he made in the case of New Zealand and, of course, the East Coast of Africa. But nonetheless, because this happened in our own country, in our own backyard, I agree with those who have posited that if for nothing at all, even as we wait for the Member of Parliament, you know, Albert Akuka, to come back to deliver a statement, we could have also stood up as an entity. I wasn't there, but I don't want to recuse myself because we are talking about Parliament as an entity. At least as Parliament, we could have equally stood up and then observed a minute of silence in honor of our lost compatriots. So it is a very unfortunate incident, but it has happened. And I think that, in all honesty, it is regrettable. I don't think that this is a matter that can be defended by any iota of imagination.
Now, let's take you to Parliament. We'll get some bite or two, and we'll start with Ras Mubarak, who is a Member of Parliament for Kumbung.
More than 70 of our compatriots have lost their lives. You know, never in the history of Ghana have we witnessed such twin disasters with this number of casualties. And I don't know what is happening. Probably once Parliament is still in session, perhaps there may be something before close of day.
All morning, there were 2 separate minutes of silence on both disasters, but not on Kindampo.
That is disappointing. You know, it's a letdown of the people who elected us to represent them. This is a national disaster. Families have been touched by this, and we represent the people, you know, and one would expect that even if a statement weren't ready, there will be at least a minute silence as a mark of respect for our compatriots who have lost their lives tragically. But I'm also disappointed by the fact that the President hasn't found time to visit surviving victims, many of whom are still in hospital. And again, that shows a lack of leadership. I'm sure if you've been following international news, the Israeli Prime Minister has cancelled a trip to Washington to head back home to Israel. And for what reason? 6 people are injured when a rocket was fired into Israel. Just 6. That is leadership. You know, in
Well, and so your colleague also seems to hold the same view.
Yes.
But
yes.
Logically, when some of these incidents happen, do we look home first, or because it's of a diplomatic nature and sometimes we need to build the seams of relationship on the continent and the global community? Sometimes we just have to make do with some of the interventions that are made. I think so.
Well, I think it is important to put things into proper perspective. In terms of the statements that were read, you know, regarding the disastrous effects of the cyclone on the East African coast, and indeed the terrorist attack in the mosque in New Zealand, usually the makers of those statements would alter the statements, and then the statements are then given to the speaker. The speaker then admits that statement, and the day is slated for the author of that statement to then read the statement on the floor of Parliament. And you would agree that factually, these two international disasters occurred before our own domestic tragedy. So the statements that were read yesterday were not just off the cuff, written yesterday and read yesterday.
We do understand.
That is fine.
But we could have done all three at
that
the
is
same
fine.
time.
So
you don't think we could have done
what
all
I
three?
said was that I agree that at the very minimum, we could have observed a minute of silence as an institution, as a parliament, in recognition of the tragic developments that befell us over the weekend. That didn't happen. It is regrettable. But remember, I also made the point that it is practice, that it is the member of parliament who represents where the citizens hail from that is usually giving the opportunity to do a formal statement on an issue of this nature.
But definitely
that
the
is still
MP was not in.
He wasn't in.
He had gone to
rightly
the
so.
constituency to make sure
he
that
had even gone to the site of the carnage. He was there. He visited all the hospitals. And he must be applauded. Visited all the hospitals to see those who were fortunate to survive.
That was why Parliament needed to do the needful.
52 out of the 60 who were in the bus coming from his constituency of Garu, only 8 survived. 52 died, and they were charred beyond recognition. So he was there, and he was there to also bid them farewell in the mass grave in which they were buried. But as a minority, we selected 2 of our colleagues, the members of parliament for Kintampo North and Kintampo South, the Honorable Fisher and the Honorable Etubonde, to accompany him, to go and support him in all of this. As I speak now, he is currently in the constituency in Garu, where he is going house to house to commensurate and sympathize with those who have lost family members whom they didn't even have the opportunity to give the burial that you and I would expect, that someday when we also, are called to glory, we'll get that type of burial. So it is very tragic. And I think that, yes, it is regrettable, but it is also regrettable that His Excellency the President did not find time in his busy schedule to also go to the site and even visit some of those who have survived the tragedy.
But have been statements made?
Yeah, but is that sufficient?
Well, it can some.
No, the point I'm making is that in as much as it is regrettable that Parliament failed. Parliament
or
failed.
You wanted a physical interaction?
What is wrong with that? Is that not the usual practice that we have come to know, that
maybe
when tragic events occur,
it will be unfair for
that the leader
of the
Republic,
the president physically
that the leader of the Republic goes there to commiserate over 90 people, in this particular instance over 70 people, at least, just a stopover on the way to Tumu to attend the festival, Paris festival, on the way back, stopping in the middle of Ghana to also empathize. Is that too much to ask? So much as Parliament should be taken on for not observing a minute of silence, I think that the citizens also have every right to take on the president for not also going there to the site, not visiting the victims who are fighting for their lives in various hospitals in the Brong-Ahafo region. It's not just sufficient to say that government is going to take over the cost. That is not good enough. So yeah, we must all accept where we fall short and pledge to do better. In the case of Parliament, I have said it's regrettable. Let's hope that government would also say that it's regrettable that the president did not make time to go to the site of this carnage.
Well, that's where we end the conversation this morning.
Very well.
And we're waiting for that press conference by the University Teachers Association of Ghana. They've slated the press conference at 2 p.m. to comment on what they say is an ongoing impasse, but we thought that there had been some truce to the disagreement on the campus of the University of Education in Winneba on one side between the council management and also the teachers. But in the meantime, though, Dr. Clement Apaak is a member of Parliament for Busa South, but also a member of Parliament for the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education, and it's the main reason why we invited him here on the UEW on Pass. Thank you for passing.
It's always a pleasure. We also say GNGM.
All right.